to get going here, and honorable members of City Council, in accordance with Virginia Beach City Code 2-21 and by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Virginia Beach, I hereby call for a special formal session of the Virginia Beach City Council. Tuesday, September 9th, 2025, at 2 p.m. City Council Conference Room 234, Building 1, second floor, 2401 Courthouse Drive. They make me read all that stuff. The purpose of the special session is to conduct public hearing and city council comments discussion as listed in the attached public agenda. At conclusion of the public briefing, the city council comments discussions, city council will convene into a closed session where the following matters will be considered. Number 1, publicly held property in District 2, District 4, District 5, public contract, MOCA RFP, and personnel matters, council appointments, council boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, task force, and appointees, performance of council appointees, boards, commissions, or committees. At the conclusion of the closed session, the City Council will reconvene into open session for the purpose of certifying the closed session. The special formal session will be broadcast on cable TV, virginiabeach.com, and Facebook Live. Yours truly, Bobby D. Okay, and I guess we're ready to go.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time we'll be joined by Tom Leahy, a familiar face, the executive director for SBSA, to learn more about an opportunity to extend the agreement for services. Go ahead, Tom, the floor is yours.
Welcome back.
Tom, long time no see. How you been?
Oh, pretty good. Thank you. Enjoying retirement.
How happy he looks.
Yeah, I hope to do that in about a decade or so.
I can highly recommend it. All right. Anyway, well, good afternoon, Mayor Dyer and Vice Mayor Wilson and all members of City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about CIPS's plans and visions to conserve our finite and limited landfill space, and also to significantly increase the amount of solid waste that we recycle and reuse in the meantime. I have with me today Mr. Henry Strickland. He's CIPS's Deputy Executive Director. Our Executive Director, Mr. Dennis Bagley, sends his regrets, but this issue is also on Portsmouth City Council agenda today, and since I'm chairman of the CIPSA board, I came here and then he went to Portsmouth. So I'd say on a personal note, I'm also here today because as I was walking out the door on my last day of work, I told City Manager Duhaney that if he needed anything, to just give me a call. I was being polite. He called my bluff. But,
Well, you know, Tom, in the Marine Corps, there's a saying, never volunteer.
That's right. So anyway, moving on. The mission of the Southeastern Public Service Authority, or CIPSA, is to provide reliable, quality, low-cost, and environmentally sound waste disposal service for the 8-member communities. It was created 50 years ago by the member localities themselves under the Virginia Water and Wastewater Authorities Act. We're governed by a long list of state and federal laws and regulations, but we also govern ourselves through agreements between CIPSA and the localities. These agreements are known as use and support agreements, and they are a major point of discussion of the presentation today. These use and support agreements are really the key critical documents that prescribe the duties and responsibilities of CIPSA and the localities and how we relate to each other. I guess in other words, they're our rule book. So CIPSA executed identical use and support agreements with all 8 members, and that superseded a previous set of agreements, and these became effective in January of 2018. The initial termination date in the current use and support agreements is June 30th, 2027. Now, the agreements will renew for 10 more years till June 30th, 2037, 2037, and that's automatic. It happens automatically unless a member locality would provide SIPSA with written notice to the contrary by the end of this calendar year. But I would say it's important to note that SIPSA and the 8 member localities have partnered to provide reliable, efficient, and quality solid waste disposal to this region for 4 decades, for 40 years. The use and support agreements have served SIPSA and the member localities extremely well, and they have functioned without incident since they were executed. No one has had an issue with them. They've worked perfectly. They've done everything they were supposed to do. So now I'd like to say a couple words about the regional landfill. It's located in Suffolk, the north side of 460 bypass. The landfill was established in the early 1980s in wetlands that happened to be adjacent to and hydrologically part of the Great Dismal Swamp Wildlife Refuge. All I can say at this time is back then that seemed like a pretty good idea. But as you might imagine, getting permits for landfill expansion in recent years has been somewhat problematic. But after a very long, very difficult, and very costly regulatory process, SIPSA has finally obtained the state and federal permits necessary for a final build-out, and I must repeat, a final build-out of the regional landfill. 2 critical and painful lessons that emerged from this permit process and the permits, what I call the grueling gauntlet, are that the first, there will be no more capacity added to the regional landfill beyond what was just permitted. It's it. It's a finite amount. And 2, any new, significant new major landfill capacity is going to come at very significant, very major environmental, financial, and political costs. So the most important takeaway from this slide is that at current disposal rates, the regional landfill as finally permitted, just permitted, will last no longer than 2060. Now, I know that may sound like a long time to some people. I can tell you as a much younger man, being part of a group that pushed through a 37-year contract with Norfolk on water, and at that time, that was so far in the future. As far as I was concerned, it was forever. And long before I left the city, I was involved with another group having to renegotiate that contract as we discovered that if that contract wasn't extended, whatever we would have to do was going to take decades to implement. So 35 years in government years is not as long as it sounds. Okay, so what would happen after 2060? Well, the waste would have to be hauled to other landfills much farther away. Transportation from the transfer stations to the landfill is a major cost factor, major cost center, major consideration in planning solid waste disposal. Based on studies conducted as part of the landfill permit process, the projected costs for disposal at farther out landfills would exceed about $125 per ton. That's in today's dollars, compared to today's cost of about $67 per ton. So the planning, engineering, property acquisition, permitting, and legal challenges with a major new landfill would be a multi-decade undertaking and have a very uncertain outcome. Now, it turns out that exporting trash outside of the region is just about as controversial as importing water into the region. Yeah, I was shocked. But if I could draw another parallel to water resources, a region without an assured waste disposal solution is going to have the same institutional, political, financial issues that a region without an assured water supply would have. Our regional landfill is a valuable and indispensable infrastructure that is owned by SIPSA members. It's absolutely necessary for the health, safety, and welfare of our communities. The region wants assured landfill capacity beyond 2060. We must reduce the volume of waste being disposed of at the landfill. So early last year, SIPSA issued a request for proposals, an RFP, seeking a third-party entity that would divert waste from the landfill by recycling, reuse, and alternative waste disposal mechanisms. SIPSA is now finalizing negotiations with Commonwealth Sortation, and that is the name of the LLC. It's actually essentially it's AMP Robotics out of Denver, Colorado, to provide mixed waste processing facilities that use artificial intelligence, robotics, to remove recyclables and organics from the solid waste stream. What would be different from our current recycling systems is under this system, the homeowner would no longer have to separate recyclables into two different cans and put two different cans at the curbside to be collected by two different trucks. All the waste would go into a single can, collected by a single truck at the curbside. Recycling and reuse would occur after collection. Under the system that we're proposing, 20% of the waste stream would be directly recycled. Another 30%, the fiber and organics, would be pyrolyzed and converted into biochar for reuse. Now, our current Blue Can system is picking up about 10 to 11% of the residential waste, but about 1/3 of that is being returned to the landfill, so we have a net recycling rate of about 6 to 7%, and that's pretty well common through all the Blue Can systems in the region. Under the SIPSA system, within 3 years, this system would divert a minimum of 50% of the waste that would otherwise be disposed of at the landfill and would extend the capacity through about 2025. 2095, excuse me. Thank you, whoever caught me. Yeah. Glad you're here. Commonwealth Sortation would invest about $200 million in new processing facilities in the region. And again, I'll be a little redundant, but this is very important. The direct recycling rate would be guaranteed, contractually guaranteed, to a minimum of 20%. And after 3 years, the landfill diversion rate would be contractually guaranteed at 50%. All 8 member communities would receive the same services at the same costs, and the region would have assured solid waste disposal capacity to almost the end of the century. But however, and this is a really big, very important however, no private sector entity can be expected to build $200 million of waste processing facilities to be amortized and depreciated over 25 years without a corresponding commitment from SIPSA and its members to provide the solid waste stream and pay for that waste processing. So therefore, SIPSA is asking all 8 member localities to execute an amendment to the use and support agreement that would renew the agreements for 25 years instead of the existing 10-year extension. So that would be June of 2052 instead of June of 2037. These amendments basically need to be secured before Commonwealth Sortation could execute a contract with SIPSA. Now, an amendment executed by a locality would be effective if, and only if, all 4 of the following actions would occur. So the first would be at least 75% of the SIPSA board members would authorize the amendments. Now that's scheduled for this month, in 2 weeks. That's 12 of 16 board members. Second, at least 75% of the member localities would execute the amendment. That's 6 of the 8 SIPSA members. Third, at least 75% of the SIPSA board members would approve a final contract with Commonwealth Sortation. Again, that would be 12 of 16. And fourth, both SIPSA and Commonwealth Sortation would execute the board-approved contract. Now, if these 4 things don't all occur, the amendment would be null and void. Wouldn't matter which locality adopted it or not. If they adopted it and those 4 things did not occur, the amendment would be null and void, have no meaning. So, if the member localities execute the amendments, the SIPSA board would then vote on approving the contract with Commonwealth Sortation and specifying Commonwealth's facilities as a designated disposal mechanism in SIPSA's standard operating procedures, also known as the SOPs. SIPSA's SOPs are an appendix to the use and support agreements. They provide significant detail and specific direction to SIPSA staff with respect to operations. These documents aren't changed lightly. A supermajority consisting, again, of 12 of 16 of the SIPSA board members is needed to approve both the contract and to modify the standard operating procedures. But if SIPSA and Commonwealth Sortation execute a contract in early 2026, there would be a phased-in ramp-up of the facilities and waste processing. It would start in spring of 2026 and pretty much be at full capacity by late 2028 or early 2029. So many years ago, I was here, Virginia Beach assumed a leadership role, and they solved not only our own water shortage, but they also solved the regional water shortage as well that was hampering all of Southside Hampton roads. So on behalf of the SIPSA Board of Directors, I'm here today to ask you to again demonstrate leadership and authorize execution of this amendment for the benefit of the city and for the region. So thank you for your time, and I'll be glad to take any questions. Might need to call Mr. Strickland up here, depending on how technical you get, but thank you.
And we're gonna go Stacy and Worth.
Thank you for the presentation. So 75% of the members have to agree to opt in. If 75% agree to opt in, are the other 25% automatically included, or do they get excluded?
That's an interesting legal question. They would actually, if two, let's just say two of the members did not sign on to this extension, they're actually still part of SIPSA and would still be bound by what SIPSA does. So 75, but on the other hand, if it was, Virginia Beach is 1/3 of SIPSA's waste, and of course 1/3 of its tip fees. If Virginia Beach didn't sign on, that would be different than, say, Southampton not signing on, which is 3% of SIPSA's contributions. So it actually probably, if 75% of the localities signed on, if their contribution wasn't such that it would actually disrupt the ability for Commonwealth Sortation to amortize or to at least be guaranteed of enough waste to process so they would get fees to amortize their facilities, it might not have an issue. But again, you're getting into a legal issue. I'd probably need Mr. Stiles and our general counsel to advise you on that.
Okay, we'll go with Mark and then Worth.
So I think what would happen, the question that Tom is addressing is whether or not Commonwealth Sortation would sign the contract based upon the available waste stream. If two of the jurisdictions didn't sign, then my assumption would be that their existing use and support agreements would remain in effect, and so their renewal will only be for 10 years rather than 25, and then that creates a business decision for Commonwealth Sortation. I think that's...
I agree. Actually, you said it better than I could, but that's exactly right.
And then, just to follow up, do you have done any calculations as to the effect on the rates to the citizens?
So if you look at the long-term picture, first of all, it's an unfortunate fact that the cheapest and most environmentally least sustainable and unsound way to dispose of our solid waste is landfilling. Recycling comes at a price. And under I can't get into a lot of details, but certainly under Commonwealth Sortation's, the contract negotiations we're in the middle of, we could see tipping fees that might be 15 to 20% higher than they would otherwise be. Now, those tipping fees are going to go up in any event because they are, solid waste is a costly business. It's heavily dependent on CDL drivers and equipment that wears out. So that is something that is always cost pressures. However, for the cities that are running blue can systems, the additional costs of the SIPSA tipping fees and the additional costs that your Director of Public Works would have to come to you for to pick up that additional 10% of the waste are expected to be less than what the cost of your blue can system. So for Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Suffolk, and I think Portsmouth, you're expected to either have the same or lower costs. There are some jurisdictions that aren't running blue can systems, and they're probably going to look at higher costs. Now, that being said, your contract with Commonwealth, your contract with your Blue Can contractor has a couple more years on it, and that would overlap with some of the SIPSA tip fee increases. So that was something that you have to do. You have to deal with.
Patrick?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, what Tom said is spot on. We do anticipate that there's going to be a period of overlap between our current Blue Can supplier, and it may mean that we would have to navigate the budget process by use of fund balance or maybe some general fund support, because we would not want to unduly or unnecessarily increase the waste management fee without a long-term need to do so.
Okay, Worth, and then Josh.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Thank you, Mr. Leahy, for the presentation and for your work on this. This is a really important topic because it's a basic city service that, and it's a long-term. Just two questions. Back to the slide on the 4 things that have to be done, all 4, not just separate. Those are big, like the agreement with Commonwealth sortation. I know you mentioned earlier when we were talking, that's a big, you're pretty well along, you feel pretty comfortable you can get, and is that by the end of this year or sometime in the next 12 months?
We are certainly hoping by the end of this year. We are very far along with the contract with Commonwealth Sortation. To give you an idea, it's 130 pages long and has 33 exhibits or attachments. I'm not sure whether they're exhibits or appendix or whatever, but there are 33 parts of that contract. It has been briefed to the board and I would have to say they are very close to a final agreement, and the terms have been briefed to the board last month, and I would say certainly well before the end of the year, there will be a final contract agreed to by the SIPSA board and Commonwealth Sortation.
Thank you. Just to follow up, you've done some due diligence, or SIPSA has, on Commonwealth Sortation and their abilities to deliver?
Absolutely. We did due diligence. We started out with 6 firms. There were 4 firms that were not carried forward because their proposals were non-responsive. We moved forward with 2 firms. There was extensive due diligence done on both firms. Commonwealth Sortation, which again is a LLC, but it'll actually be AMP Robotics, will be the vast majority of who we're dealing with out of Denver. They are running facilities right now in Portsmouth. In fact, that facility in Portsmouth will be part of this proposal. It's doing right now, I think, about something equal to about 1/8 of the regional capacity, regional supply, solid waste stream. Under this proposal, would end up being more about 1/4, and the other 3/4 would be expanded later. They also have a huge facility in Cleveland that is doing exactly what they will be doing for us in terms of separating and recovering recyclables.
Okay, we're gonna go Josh and Rose now.
Mr. Leahy, thank you very much. Nice to see you again, sir. And you might be retired, but it kind of looks like you're working still. So we're glad to have you back, sir. A couple of questions. If we were to give, I'm not sure what exactly we're looking for today, right now, but if there was at least a nod to proceed or some authorization being sought, I assume that doesn't mean that we're not going to be able to see what this might entail from a financial perspective. So like those other things don't cascade into fait accompli. Will we have a chance to review the agreement terms? Who sits on our SIPSA board? I'm assuming either the mayor or you. So just that question. I've got one other question, if you don't mind.
So per city council recommendation and per the governor's appointment, Tom Leahy sits on the board, and LJ Hansen is our city representative on the board as well. Basically, what Tom said on the fees is pretty much the ballpark of it, is that we anticipate with the tipping fee increases and our Blue Can coming off eventually that we won't necessarily see a cost increase associated with this transaction. There may be a period of time when we're still going to be having our Blue Can contract and the tipping fees go up, that we're going to probably have to navigate between either fund balance and the waste management fund or some general fund support, because we wouldn't want to unnecessarily increase the waste management fee just for a short-term need. But the finances are pretty solid. If some reason that changes, council controls the ability to appropriate the funds, right? That's something that would have to be determined throughout the period of time. But basically what the ask is right now is council comfortable with us bringing forward an ordinance for its consideration to extend the extension term from 10 years to 25 years. So Commonwealth Sortorium can amateurize the debt necessary to take out $200 million to invest in the facility to take over this role for SIPSA.
Well, I mean, it looks like there's a lot to like about it, especially, I mean, tripling the recycling rate, and then extending the life of the landfill by another, 35 years. So that's great. And just as an aside, I think SIPSA, along with another couple of regional organizations that really work well with localities. I mean, we get, as Hampton Roads, a region, like criticized for not being the best in terms of working together and being regional partners. SIPSA certainly, and transportation certainly is an exception to that rule. What is biochem? Or char?
Biochar?
Yeah.
Oh, so 30% of the waste, which is essentially the organic and fiber, is dried and then fed to pyrolysis kilns, which essentially is a incineration without oxygen. And I don't know if you remember from high school chemistry where you heated up some wood chips in a test tube that had a top on it, and you basically, that was pyrolysis, and you turn that into essentially carbon. And this biochar has a number of uses. One is it can be an alternate, what they call a daily cover for landfills, and there have already been our landfills don't need the daily cover because we have the material there. But some of the landfills have already approached Commonwealth Sortation about a daily cover. It's also can be used in as an additive to concrete instead of fly ash. And so for the first 3 years, the contractor can actually it ends up being about 10%. Of that 30% is converted down to about 10% carbon. For the first 3 years, the contractor has the right to put it into our landfill, sequester it. They are getting, they sell carbon credits to companies that are trying to be carbon neutral. And so that it has to go into something that won't be used again. You can't re-burn it. Although that is a use for it. It can be turned into biocoal, but that is not what the plan is. The plan is to sequester this carbon so that it is taken out of the environment, either in landfill or in the concrete. So that's what it is, basically essentially the carbon that is left from the fiber and organic material that is pyrolyzed.
Thank you very much for that.
Rosemary.
Some of my questions have been answered, however, I still want to comment that recycling is very popular with our citizens, and this will make everybody with a black can be a recycler, which I think it's really good news environmentally for all of us. And it sounds like a really good way to stretch out way beyond the time any of us will be around anymore. But really, by then, who knows what kind of solutions there will be for waste. I guess I was just trying to figure out what the next actions were going to have to be taken by the council. And also, where will Commonwealth Sortation be built? I guess it has to be built, correct?
They have a facility in Portsmouth right now on Frederick Boulevard. That'll end up being about 1/4 of their facilities. The other 3/4 will actually go on SIPSA-controlled property, the former Wheelabrator site that was burning all of our trash before Navy stopped taking the steam and they went out of business. SIPSA took over that site, and so the other 3/4 of their operation will be right there on the SIPSA site.
So I guess, so the other council actions that you mentioned, an ordinance to extend the date.
Right.
Okay, Patrick and then Hutch.
So, Mr. Mayor, unless council says otherwise, we would look to bring that ordinance forward for either for October, the first October briefing, the first October meeting, which I think is October 7th, for consideration. You know, unless council asks us to do something differently, we'll look to bring it on to October, the first agenda in October 4. You also adopt.
Let me let Hutch get in and then we'll start.
So, Tom, will you go to the slide that showed the percentage that it will go to once it's up and running for recycling, and then what the percentage is right now? And then
I believe that's.
Yeah, so I'm going to start off with another question first, though. I talk about the diner a lot. A lot of guys line up to ask me questions. And so I started pitching this already, and I was telling my wife and everybody else, because I think it's a fantastic idea, because just as the vice mayor just said, it turns everybody into recycling. It makes it good, I think, right? It takes a lot of the, is this a 5 good? Is this 1 good? Can we throw it in here? Let the pros decide. What I found out is to a person, they still think we're dumping our trash at Mount Trashmore 2. Yeah. And so I did the same thing. I was like, ooh, I thought everybody said it might be something for Tiffany as far as when we have to go to do this is like, do you remember when we stopped taking trash to Centerville Turnpike? I know LJ wasn't here, but do you remember?
Maybe Mr. Hanson knows it's a long time.
I mean, it was a long time ago, right? But I'm just saying that's one of the things I think we need to kind of say is that doesn't happen anymore.
Well, it does though. We still use the landfill, the Virginia Beach landfill. We do not use it for municipal solid waste. So the use and support agreements that Tom was talking about today specify that all of the 8 member localities have to bring all of the municipal solid waste to SIPSA for their use. But municipal solid waste is typically defined as that material that we find in our black cans. But we have several trucks that run through everybody's neighborhood. We collect yard waste, we collect bulk material, we have people that drop stuff off at the landfill. So we do still use the Centerville.
Right. I was saying more that like you just said, the black can stuff does not go to Centerville. If you're taking an old fridge or they got the metal, they do a lot of separation. They've got the big dumpsters. You throw your old deck in, that kind of stuff is what's going to Trashmore 2, right?
That's correct. And I would have to say that's probably been the case since they closed Trashmore 1 or not very long after that. Because SIPS has been handling the waste for Virginia Beach for quite a while.
Yeah, I just was curious on that. Okay. So then, Tom, the next thing is that I just want to, I'm kind of pulling what Councilwoman Rouse does for the general TV public, is because I don't think it's realized about that, that we're only at 6 to 7% is getting recycled, and that you're saying there that it's going to go up to almost 50%?
So your blue can contractor's picking up about 10 or 11%. About a third of that is going back to the landfill as things that are unprocessable or unrecyclable. So 6 to 7%. In our case, you take the raw municipal stream, not separated. 20% would come out, and it'd mostly be virtually all the metals and all the plastics. Yep. The organics and the fiber products would be separated. That's another 30%. They would go to these pyrolysis kilns, and what would come out of them is about 10% of that, a third of that 30% would come out as biochar. Whereas the other 20%, well, about half of that is water vapor, and the other half is emissions, mostly carbon dioxide, that comes out because all fiber and organic material contains quite a bit of oxygen, as you would imagine. So even when you do heat it, there's still going to be some CO2 generated, but it is a fraction of what was being generated when we were burning and incinerating all of our trash. I mean, a tiny fraction of it.
Okay, so the positive is we're going from 6 or 7 to somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% when we get up and running.
Well, we're reducing the landfill by 50%. What's actually being recycled and reused would be more like 30%.
I'm sorry. Okay, it's still good because we're extending the life to 2095.
And extending the life of the landfill, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? At this point, does anybody object to moving forward? Okay, good. And let me say, Tom, as being the landfill baron for 14 years before I became mayor, if you get a chance, you should go out to Jake Sears Road off Centerville Turnpike and take a look. It is a magnificent operation of bringing, things. You can get rid of electronic thing. You can get rid of paints and oils. You can get rid of seashells. You can bring, paper and everything. But I just want to, say, Patrick, that the crew out there is so friendly and accommodating. And it's a magnificent operation that they got there. I think the city would be proud of. And congratulations, Cass Green, you are now the landfill baron.
A new title. A new title.
So, by the way,
My
Mayor,
business card.
some weeks ago, the executive director and I sent you and Mr. Duhaney a letter. I think I copied all the council members. It explained it was sort of a summary of this presentation and had the amendment. I do have 15 copies here. If anybody would like a current copy, I'll just leave them with Mr. Duhaney and he can come out to you.
Yeah, it's tough predicting the future.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, we'll work to get something on your agenda for October 7th, and that concludes the workshop briefings.
And Tom, you thought Lake Hanson was a challenge, right? And you did that, so that's a good thing. All right, thank you. Okay, moving on.
Take care, Tom.
Okay, I guess we're into council comments. Any council comments at all? Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. I have these flyers in front of me that just reminded me that we are planning a District 3 Neighborhood Safety and Self-Defense Workshop in partnership with Sheriff Rocky Holcomb and the Virginia Beach Sheriff's Office. It's kind of a unique spin on a district town hall, a little bit different. But it's free, it's open to everyone, no matter which district. And I think it'll be really interesting. Participants will have some chance to get some hands-on self-defense techniques taught by our professionals at the Sheriff's Office, and some tips on neighborhood awareness. And it's just good to, think about those things as we think about our safety for ourselves and our families. And I want to thank the Sheriff's Office for partnering with me on this, and to all those who will attend. And I'll share more information on social media as the days goes by, but I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else at this point?
Oh, I do have.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, September 22nd from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Princess Anne High School. I've asked the city attorney's office to make a presentation about the referendum regarding our election system, just to educate the public and to be there to answer any questions that people have. So September 22nd, Monday night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then I also just really quickly saw a letter in our packet here from the RAC relative to the vulgar merchandise and things that we asked our retailers to help cooperate with us to clean up. Just want to thank you to Councilmember Remick and to the RAC for support on that endeavor. And I know there was a council member memo circulated a little while back, maybe a week ago, that there's folks out there currently starting to have some of those conversations. I was wondering if you might be able to update.
So that's actually happening today. So staff and ambassadors are going out right now to meet with the shop owners to try to get them to, comply with the request that they tone down some of the language on the products that are outside of their shops. And then after that, we'll follow up with the actual business owners as well, right? So we're reaching out to the tenants and the operators right now, and if they're just renters and not the owners, we're also going to be following up with the owners as well to see if we can get their assistance in helping to tone things down on the beach.
Hey, Cash?
I was proud to attend the second year anniversary of Genuine Care, which is a non-emergency medical transportation company. And Dr. Amelia Ross Hammond and myself were there in present form, and it was just nice to see a small business that started with one truck, and just to see their vision and just the support that they knew that they had from the city of Virginia Beach and the community. It takes a lot to get a business started. And so again, that business name is Genuine Care. I just can tell you that the owners, the co-owners, the community showed up at the Sheraton. We were in Norfolk, sorry, but Virginia Beach was there. And with that being said, I wanted people to know that we do care about small businesses.
Thank you. And Morris, what about Mount Olive?
So Mount Olive Baptist Church on Burneck Road, Pastor Jason Knight and the congregants celebrated a return. That was the theme of the return of this grand opening Saturday night, but also Sunday. We attended Saturday night. This church is the mother church in SeaTac, and it was started in 1892, and so it's returning back to its location on North Great Neck Road. Great event, great time. Thanks for
Yeah,
listening.
thanks for covering, appreciate it. Anybody else? Just quickly, this morning I welcomed a convention group, and it was called Water Jam. And there were about 2,000 water engineers from the East Coast that showed up, involved in all aspects of water. And, they're doing some amazing things now. They're actually taking wastewater, purifying it, and they can use it on golf courses now and other practical applications. But the point in my remarks, I was able to, talk about three things. We have a group, I believe, of third graders that every year we have a contest. They drew something about water conservation, and it's really kind of cute. And the city puts out a calendar with the winners on that. And then the other thing we brought up, Michael, was the Boat Creek project that is, really, going to make a spectacular water retention area and park and everything, and just showing the innovation of things. But the big one, what the crowd really enjoyed, was with HRSC's 52 million gallon retention pond that we put a skateboard park on. In terms of, Hutch, that's pretty much in your neighborhood.
Yep, right there.
And I'll tell you what, if people haven't seen it yet, that thing is state of the art. But once again, with these engineers, it was amazing, the strides that they're taking, and especially when you think about, with water, wastewater and everything, how it affects city budgets, the need to keep infrastructure going and everything. But once again, the engineers out there are just thinking of some very, very ways. So kudos to our folks that are involved with that. Okay, at this point, I think we're ready for close. The chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions of the open meetings allowed by section 2.2, 3711A, Code of Virginia, as amended for the following purposes. Publicly held property. Discussions or considerations of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or for the disposition of publicly held property, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiation strategy of the public body pursuant to section 2.2, 3711A3, and that would be a District 2, a District 4, and a District 6. And then public contract, discussion of the award of public contract involving the expenditure of public funds and discussions in terms of the scope of such contract, where discussion in open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or the negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to section 2.2, 3711A29, and that's the MOCA RFP. And then personnel matters, discussions, considerations, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of the public body pursuant to section 2.2, 3711A1, and that would be a council appointments for boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, and appointees, and also performance of council appointees, boards, commissions, and or committees. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Belushi?
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings?
Aye.
Councilmember Henley? Councilmember Hutchison?
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Remick?
Aye.
Councilmember Walken is absent. Councilmember Rouse?
Aye.
Councilmember Schulman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Dyer?
Aye.
And Chair.
Okay, we are recessed into close.
Chief?
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings?
Aye.
Councilmember Henley just left. Councilmember Hutchison?
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Remick?
Aye.
Councilmember Ross is absent. Councilmember Rouse?
Aye.
Councilmember Schulman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Aye, sorry.
Mayor Dyer?
Aye.
I vote of 9 to 3, first half of closed session being part of the motion to recess.
Thank you all very much. We are adjourned.
I'll see you guys.